Welcome to the Three Old Goalies podcast. As always, the Three Old Goalies recommends that the show is not for listeners under the age of 17, so have your earmuffs on the ready. For this episode, we have college coaching great Ralph Lundy on the show. Music for the show is provided by the Floodgate Operators. Be sure to check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. The Three Old Goalies are brought to you by The Squad.com because everybody loves a W. Check out The Squad for all your recruiting needs. And now we send you to Bone with our special guest, Ralph Lundy.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Three Old Goalies. Tonight we have Ralph Lundy, the legendary coach from Erskine College and recently College of Charleston, who just retired a few years ago. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Ralph.
My pleasure.
Unfortunately, Eric Evie was not able to make it, so it's going to be John Boa, myself, and Ryan, who you talked to a little bit earlier, our producer. So again, thank you so much. In case you folks out there are unaware, recently, Ralph was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by the United Coaches at the convention in January. So Ralph, first, congratulations. And what was the excitement when you found out about the news, and, you know, how fulfilling has it been to win that award?
It is extremely exciting because it's the Walt Cheslowitz Award, and he was the one who made soccer a big part of our lives in this country. And he was my mentor, and he didn't care where you were from or what kind of accent you had. He cared that you loved the game and you were ready to work for the game. So it meant so much because, I mean, Walt was my mentor.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. Sort of how you instilled, you know, your soccer beliefs as well, Ralph, I might add. So it's interesting that you felt, you know, right in there, as I would say. What a nice fit for that award. John Bowe, you're going to be amazed by this. 453 wins.
I saw that. It's always humbling. Coach, how are you? I think we met with EV when I was 19 years old in Philadelphia.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
My goodness.
But and they always make me follow the special guests, and every time they have like 8,000 wins. So it's very humbling. I did want to throw one thing in, Greg Deutsch, because everything in the world revolves around the Three Old Goalies podcast.
Of course.
A really good friend of mine named Billy Lassane,
yes,
played for Coach Paulson. So I played for Coach Lundy, and his father hired Coach at Erskine. Is that right, Coach?
Yeah, and he's my best man.
Oh,
Amazing.
my gosh. Wow, some digging there. I like that, John. I like
and
that.
Billy was Robbie Church's assistant at Duke forever. And now he's running the USL thing in Asheville. So small world.
Oh, is that what he's doing? Oh, good.
I started Billy playing at 12 years old when they had no youth soccer in the little village of Due West where Erskine College is. And I started 2 youth teams, and we played in the Greenwood League. And Billy started playing when he was 12. And then Billy came to Erskine and played for me. And then the senior year was an All-American.
He was a good player.
Yeah. Wow.
A great player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then he came my 3rd and 4th year at College of Charleston. He came down and was my assistant coach.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
And then he went back to Erskine to be the men's and women's coach before he joined Robbie. Actually, Robbie called me and said, I need somebody that's really good, work ethic, sun up to sundown. And I said, well, he's right here with me. His name's Billy Lassane.
What a story.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. All right. So 453 wins. He's won the conference championship 5 times. 21 seasons he coached, John. 33 years just amazing. 21 seasons at College of Charleston, 33 years coaching. As he alluded to, he started in 1976 in Erskine. And I'm going to let Ralph tell the story because he almost didn't end up there. And as far, as the NAI, he was in the NAI tournament 3 times. So we got a lot to sort of talk about here. So I don't know if you know this, John, but he was almost going to end up at Warren Wilson.
No way.
All right. So this is a great story,
Absolutely.
Frank. So, Ralph, so go ahead, tell this story.
Well, I was actually a head coach 44 years. I was assistant 2 years, but I was 11 years at Erskine, and we won 7 league championships and then got to the NAI national tournament 3 times. Then I took the job at College of Charleston for 33 years, and we went to the NCAA tournament 5 times. But I went to Western to play baseball, and I went to Brevard College to play baseball, and I did play baseball in college. Actually, my junior year, I played baseball. I wrestled 3 varsity matches, and I was captain of the soccer team. That was at Western Carolina University. But my first 2 years at Brevard, I went to play baseball, and the guys in my hall were soccer players, so I'd play after dinner with them. And a week before the first game, they convinced me, and we had 1 week of baseball practice, and they convinced me to go out. So I went out on Monday, and on Saturday I played 1 quarter, 22-minute quarter against King College. And from that point on, I played every minute. But I also played baseball. And then when I transferred, Brevard was 2 year then. And when I transferred to Western, my junior year, I played soccer, finished on Saturday, started wrestling on Monday, finished wrestling on Saturday, started baseball on Monday. But I only wrestled 3 varsity matches. Obviously, you had to, and I hadn't wrestled in 2 years from the high school wrestling team. But anyway, I've always loved to play ball, obviously. And so I finished my degree by doing my student teaching in the fall of 72. And at the same time, I was the assistant coach at Brevard. And I helped run a dorm, and I ran the student union at night, did my student teaching in the day. And that was all brought about by my Brevard coach named Larry Birch, who was actually my baseball coach because the baseball coach had left. My sophomore year, he was the soccer coach because Gerhard Tauscher, the soccer coach, had left. My sophomore year, we finished 6th in the junior college national tournament. So Larry Birch was a big part of my life. He just passed away a year ago. He was tremendous. And then I transferred to Western. I was recruited by the soccer coach, actually. But I played 3 sports my junior year. My senior year, I decided not to wrestle because I only won out to be able to wrestle in 3 varsity matches. And I wanted to focus on soccer and baseball. So then I went to Marine Corps Officer School, February 73. And I was a Marine officer for 3 years. And it was unbelievable. I had
was that in San Diego or in North Carolina?
No, actually, you go to officer school for a year in Quantico, Virginia.
Okay.
That's where Marine Corps officer training is. And
wow.
And then I was stationed up in the high desert for 6 months in California, a place called 29 Palms, to do training. And then at Pendleton, which is Oceanside, California, above San Diego.
Okay.
And I actually made the all Marine Corps slow pitch softball team. And we played out of San Diego. And then we went to Charleston to play the tournament against Air Force, Army, and Navy. and we won the tournament. And that was just before I got out. I got out in time to start my master's. The season at Brevard, by the way, in 72 was unbelievable. It was, and I was just today with one of my players who played for me in 72 at Brevard. So I got out of the Marine Corps and got an assistant coaching job at Western Carolina for my coach, Dr. Charles Schrader, who was very important in my life and a great, great man. He's passed away. What a great man he was. And he's the one that influenced me to go to officer school. He was a Marine officer. At any rate, I was his assistant coach. And I was getting my master's. So we played Warren Wilson in the fall, and they beat us. And Hank had a great year. They were a great, amazing team. They were weak in the goal, but they had this tall, goofy-looking guy in the goal, and I thought they got him from the basketball team. But then I saw him run and realized he couldn't have been on the basketball team. But I think his name was Vodder. So at any rate, they beat us pretty bad, and the coach impressed me so much that I went over to him after the game and just told him he had a great team. They played great. And, I'd like to, if he wanted me to help him do things or be involved with the area in youth soccer, I'd sure be happy to do it. And that was Hank Steinbrecher, of course. So the fall progressed, and then the season was over. And I actually, right after the season was over, I started going over to Warren Wilson on Wednesday nights to play indoor.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Coach. Is Cullowhee you were at Cullowhee then? Western Carolina?
Cullowhee is about an hour from Warren Wilson. So Cullowhee is on the west side of Asheville.
Okay.
Over towards Cherokee, over towards the Smoky Mountains, and Warren Wilson's in Swannanoa on the eastern side of Asheville.
Roger
so
that.
Became great friends with Hank and all the guys, Roland and Eric and lots of others. And actually one of my leading scorer from that Brevard team in 72 was playing for Hank, a guy named Daryl Chapman, who had an uncanny way of scoring goals out of Charlotte, North Carolina. But Hank said, I need somebody. Would you be interested in being my assistant coach? And I certainly said yes right away. Of course, we had the indoor tournament, the Tournament of Friends, which was always bloody. And as you guys know, it started sometime around noon on Friday. And the Friday session would end at about 2 a.m. on Saturday morning, and then the first game kicked off at 8 on Saturday, and the championship was usually played at about 2 a.m. on Monday morning. So I refed a lot of those games, and I was ready. Hank got me a job as assistant soccer coach, intramural director, gym director, dorm director, cafeteria worker, in a room in the dorm, obviously as dorm director, but I was happy as I could be. And the passion for soccer was so amazing. I was overcome with it. And obviously Hank's passion and charisma and devotion to the game. And we did lots of youth clinics around Asheville. He really got Asheville fired up about youth soccer. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to, when I could, to be over there on Saturdays with him. But then this coach from Brevard named Larry Birch, actually he was a basketball coach. And by that time he had become head basketball coach at Presbyterian College. And he had dinner with the AD basketball coach from Erskine. And a great fellow named Daryl Saunders had just left Erskine. Warren Wilson beat Erskine for the league championship. Actually, old Tubbs and I, Alan Warwick. And I drove down there to Erskine to watch the game. They were charging $5 to get in, so we shimmied up a tree and sat in a branch outside the fence to watch the game. And Warren Wilson won 2-1 and went to the region playoffs against North Carolina and Georgia and Alabama. And Warren Wilson was in the South Carolina district at that time with the South Carolina schools. So I'm ready to go at Warren Wilson, but Larry Birch, my coach at Brevard, told the Erskine coach, who had been a Marine, that there was a Marine getting his master's and he would do well as the Erskine head coach. So Red Myers called me up on Monday and said, would you be interested in our head job? So I called Hank, because it was Warren Wilson and Erskine. I called Hank. He said, you're ready for it. You can do it. Now, I'd only signed a contract 1 month before with him, so I didn't know if I'd done so poorly already, even though I was still over in Cullowhee in graduate school, if he wanted to get rid of me or if he wanted to set me up at Erskine. But at any rate, I'm making a joke there, but not much. But anyway, he actually called Red Myers right away and said, you couldn't do better. I signed him as our assistant, and I would really love for him to be with me, but he can do it with you. So I went to Erskine in 76. And we had tremendous games with Warren Wilson. The 76 game, I believe we beat him. We never lost to him. But the 77 game, which was a great, great team I had at Erskine. Ricky Wright was my number 8, and a great player named Ali Regimon. But my number 10 was Mike Ortez Velez, who actually became the MVP of the Senior Bowl in that January, was MVP. And there was only one Senior Bowl in the country, and there was only one event in the country. And you guys, maybe you remember this.
I was at that game, Ralph, because Roland got selected to play that game.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ortez
wasn't Ricky Wright a coach at Erskine?
Yeah, Ricky Wright followed me at Erskine when I left to take the job at Charleston in 87.
Right on. Yeah.
And actually, the Anderson University AD was my friend, and he called me and said, we're going to start soccer. And actually, Ricky had just damaged his knee playing for Chicago Sting. He got drafted by the Sting. And he just had surgery, and it was looking like his career was done. So I recommended him at Anderson. He did a great job. And then for 5 years, and when I left Erskine, Bill Lassane, Billy's daddy, hired Ricky Wright.
Wow.
And then after Ricky Wright was Billy Lassane. And that was great, because those two are so near and dear to me in my life. And I love Erskine. I love that little village. I love it. It's so unique. And there are not many college villages like that left in this country.
For sure.
Yeah, you were saying in 1977 that game was I remember that game. I mean, Ricky Wright, John Boa could hit a goal kick, literally to the other keeper. It was amazing, Ralph.
Yeah, and he could do it with both feet.
Yeah, when we were in college, he would play with the EVs with Roland and JP and those dudes, and they were so good.
The 77 game,
top of the ball, and
Warren Wilson was undefeated. We were undefeated, and we were going to Warren Wilson to play. They came down to us my first year in 76. Hank promoted it all over Asheville, every youth player in Asheville. He got the local TV to come out and cover it. And he told me all this. And obviously, we all know what an amazing promoter and how much excitement Hank Steinbrecher could generate. And on Tuesday, he calls me and said, Eric dislocated his shoulder against Central Wesleyan on Saturday. And I said on the phone, oh, that's terrible. And I got off the phone and said, hell yes, that is wonderful. Because, I mean, he was like Van Taylor. He was different goalkeeper than anybody around. And I don't care. And we played everybody back then because my buddies were John Rennie at Duke and Anson Durant at North Carolina. So we played everybody. But Eric at Warren Wilson was a better keeper. And we were overjoyed. I mean, we were going crazy because we had talked about we can't play it in the air because he's 6'3" and he goes up and he commands, demands, and controls everything in the air. And anything we played in from the flanks, we had to pull it back to get it away from him. We had to keep it on the ground and et cetera, et cetera. So we go to Warren Wilson. Sure enough, there's 2,000 people there, and Hank's got every damn buddy you can imagine. And there's the local TV station doing a piece on it. And we line up before we do go through the warm-ups and everything, and there's Eric over there in a sling. And he doesn't warm up or anything. So they leave and they go through whatever Hank Steinbrecher would put together. Come back and we line up on the touch lines, and Eric's down on the end, not as one of the starters. And they announce our team. We all go out to the middle, and they come out with Hank's showmanship. They all, walk down our line, shake hands and all this stuff. And they name 10 players, and they get to the 11th player. And starting in goal is All-American Eric Votter. He takes off the sling, waves at me, and says, hey, Ralph, I think we got you, didn't we? The jerk.
Harlem Globetrotter level. I've never heard that story.
You never heard it?
Never heard that story, man. I've had many beers with those two guys.
Well,
never heard that story.
So about 3 years ago, I actually brought a sling to the convention and I gave it to him.
Fantastic.
And we ended up 1-1 that day. It was a great game. Great game. But Ortez Velez, that was 77 fall, and then he played Senior Bowl 78. You said he played with Roland. I was there too. And this is one of the things that Walt liked. I taught a January course, soccer coaching. I had 12 students. We were all there for the Senior Bowl game. Then we drove on to Tampa. That was in Orlando. Drove on to Tampa for coaching school. And those 12 guys all went for their C license when I went for my A. And, Ricky Wright was in that group. He got his C. Ali Regimon, who really was the coach, one of the guys who started Castle in Raleigh. He's a nuclear engineer, and he was assistant coach for Larry Gross at NC State when he was working on his master's and PhD in nuclear engineering.
Wow.
Mike Riley, who coached Hampton, Sydney, Spartanburg Methodist, and Elon, was in that group. I got a great picture. Well, actually, our picture was on the cover of Soccer America with Mike Ortez in the middle of us holding up the MVP trophy.
Wow.
And Mike had a good, solid pro career. Fort Lauderdale drafted him in the first round, so he got to play with Gordon Banks and Gerd Mueller, which ain't bad company.
No. Wow. Yeah.
So those are some of the Erskine, Warren Wilson stories with Hank. And,
so I was going to ask you, you stayed at Erskine 15 years, as you mentioned, and then started the program at College of Charleston. which at that time people forget that was an NAI school too. Why?
Well, everybody was NAI. Everybody that wasn't Division I. And a lot of the schools people think would have been Division I forever were actually NAI programs at that time.
Yeah.
So I was 11 years at Erskine, and it was great competition in South Carolina. Certainly in North Carolina, North Carolina had way more NAI schools. Georgia had many, all the smaller schools. Alabama had quite a few, but University of Alabama Huntsville was very, very strong. Mm-hmm. Tremendous international players, but NAIA was something.
And then was Coach Abraham at Clemson by then?
Yeah, we played him every year.
83.
Actually, 77, they beat us 1-0 in overtime. Ricky Wright took so many goal kicks. And you're right, he could hit it to the other 18 that he had to start taking them with his left foot. And he could hit them a mile with his left foot. But, you know, we were under pressure. They had amazing Nigerian players.
Oh, man, yeah.
And they were something. And they beat us 1-0 in overtime in 77. The team I had with Mike Ortez-Velez and Ricky Wright and many other players on that team. Mike Rubish, who coached Emory for 16 years. Ralph Polson was on that team. A good bunch of just a tremendous bunch on that team. 77. Ollie Regimon, like I mentioned, a guy named Sammy Nesrola, who was a great player from Chicago. But that was a great game that day at Clemson. 1-0 loss, unfortunately.
Crazy.
But NAI was so damn tough back then.
Oh, yeah.
All over the country.
All over the country. Sangamon. Yep.
Well, Quincy was the king. Quincy beat St. Louis about every other year. They'd one year St. Louis would win the game, and the next year Quincy. The coach there, Jack McKenzie, was an amazing coach, an amazing gentleman.
Great guy.
Yep. He was the best.
Abraham Lincoln's hometown, Mudbone.
No, a little trivia there.
Yeah.
Ralph, I want to know, like, what made you want to leave and go to College of Charleston at that point?
Well, at Erskine, I taught measurement evaluation, kinesiology, school and community health, organization, administration of physical education, and many other courses. So my days were extremely busy. In 86, I coached the women and the men. I started the women's program in 85, and it really took off. I went crazy, and the great young lady we had just couldn't handle it. So in 86, I coached both teams. And it was interesting. I mean, I love Due West. I still love it. And I loved Erskine. My wife is from South Carolina. And the only time I'd gone to Charleston was to go down and play. And then I'd put the players in the vans and we'd stop and eat fast food and go back to Erskine. So I really didn't have any idea about Charleston. And they called me and said, we would like you to interview. We would really like you to take the job, but come on down and see us. And our girls had lost in the finals to go to the national tournament, NAI Nationals, and our men's team went to the NAI Nationals. That was a great team. Garth Paulinet, Brian Haynes.
Brian,
to name two.
Player. Brian Haynes was a player. Yes.
Garth Paulinet,
oh my God. Garth Paulinet, as a freshman, scored 26 goals. He made me a very good coach. He really did. But I told the AD at Charleston I was very happy at Erskine, but I had a max load. But I'd been there 11 years, and I loved it. And we were doing indoor tournaments like crazy. We were doing youth indoor tournaments, but it was a full day for me every single day. My camps there were going tremendous. So I went home and told my wife. Charleston called, but I told him I really wasn't interested. And she said, do you really know what Charleston's about? And I said, well, no, I just went down there and played, and they don't even have a good field. And He said, do you have a number for the AD? And I did. I had his own number. He gave it to me because he said, I'd really like to talk to you more. And would you just think about this? Call me tonight or call me tomorrow. So I called him back. And when I went down to visit, two things happened. Number one, they said, the president said, we're going Division I. And the AD said, you won't have to teach. You're not going to teach any. You're going to be the soccer coach, period. And then we saw the potential, my wife and I, and, I thought about it. I went back. Of course, my best man was my boss, Bill Lassane Sr. So I went back and thought about it and realized that was what I needed to do. And it worked. So it was wonderful. I love the people at Erskine, though. Actually, I love going back and visiting that little village.
Yeah, talk to us at that time about the Division I status of these schools, because you're in the hotbed of the ACC country. A lot of colleges are starting to play, and it's very good soccer. What was it like building that program, and then playing the Clemsons, the South Carolina with Mark Burson? John mentioned Ibrahim at Clemson, but then you also got to go into North Carolina and play UNC, the Dukes, NC State. So what was that like, especially in that time period, because everybody was just starting the soccer and it was just really taking off in that area. I mean, go ahead.
I was fortunate to have great friends. Let me tell you what kind of guy Anson Durance is. So in '86 was our second year of our women's program. And I'd already played Anson with the men. And I played North Carolina and George Kennedy at Wake. He was the first coach at Wake.
Yep.
And played John Rennie, my great friend at Duke. And George Tarantini, Larry Gross at NC State. Of course, Mark and I played always. And Ebe, we had to go there every year. That was the only school that ever said, we will not give you a return game. But I took the trip every year because it was worth it. They were 1 hour away, and it was Clemson. And but see, and I'll tell you what I did. Now NCAA, all recruiting now has become so international. What I did, I had South Carolina players and Georgia players and other players from different places. North Carolina players, South Carolina players, lots. Georgia, Florida, and internationals. But I had maybe 4 internationals or 5 internationals on a team of 30. And what I did was we played just like at Warren Wilson and Hank and Eric and Roland. We played all the time. We played indoor all the time.
That's right.
And we played and we trained and we played. I'm back to Anson Durance. In '86, that guy put the men and women on a bus and brought them to Erskine to play us. Now, our women's team, really, it was amazing how many good players we got in 1 year because there were so few programs. Mm-hmm. And we were darn good. We weren't darn good compared to North Carolina. They beat us. They came and played us in Due West, a doubleheader. Actually, they won both games. That was '86, and I had a great team. Men and the women were doing great. But he didn't even pause a second when I mentioned to him at the convention, do you have any open dates? Yeah. Would you come to Due West? Yeah, I'll come to Due West. You came to me last year with men. I'll bring them both down. How about that? To promote the game, that's what he did. I think they might have beat us 4 or 5-0 that day, the women. The men's game was a 1-goal game. Mm-hmm. And we beat all the we beat Wake and North Carolina and Duke and NC State and South Carolina. We actually never beat Clemson. That was something I look back and wish we were so close. And with the College of Charleston, I tied them one time. But at any rate, that's.
But Coach Dorrance was like that, Coach. I remember he came to Belmont Abbey in '87, and all his players were like, "What are we doing in this little town?" And Anson was like, "Hey, we're here to play, and you got to win." I think they beat us, but it was 0-0 at halftime. It was a big deal, but he was never afraid to go play people that were good
because he wanted to promote the game. Because he
absolutely.
Yeah.
And when the president, so this president took over College of Charleston, and he immediately said, "We want to become a university. We want to grow the enrollment. Everything's right here. And we want to go Division I. We want to go Division I." Well, the program had won the NAI National Championship in basketball, and the AD at that time was the basketball coach, and he was a great one. He didn't want to go Division I. So when somebody told him at Erskine, Lundy plays North Carolina, South Carolina, Clemson, Duke, Wake, North Carolina State, he couldn't believe it. I mean, that's Erskine with 900 students playing those schools. And he immediately asked, "How is that done?" And they said, "Well, the guy that coaches there arranges a schedule, and all these guys are his buddies. And does he ever beat them?" "Yeah, he beats them sometimes." So he was pretty set because he wanted to go Division I. He saw the potential of College of Charleston. So that man was amazing. That president, his name was Harry Leitz. He's probably the smartest. He had been dean of the law school, the only law school in the state of South Carolina. And he was smarter than about anybody I've ever met in my life. He just was brilliant. So that was great. And then my next president, I had to hustle. We played at a field on one of the rivers. It actually ended up being 17 acres of very, very valuable land that we sold. But once I got to Charleston, I realized we needed something better than this piece of land with trailers. And actually, Elmar helped me in this fashion. I'll tell you how. But I started hustling and going to every place and everywhere and every soccer club and Rotary and Kiwanis and anybody who'd listened to me about building an athletic complex. And by this time, we had another brilliant president, Judge Alex Sanders. And he realized we needed better. But there wasn't, other than me in there wasn't great emphasis to do this. So I really started hustling, and I got the mayor on my side of Mount Pleasant, and then I got the admiral of Patriots Point, which is owned by the state. That's where the aircraft carrier Yorktown is, and it's a naval museum, and they own tons of land right there in the harbor, on the harbor. So this coalition came together, but Elmar iced it. He really did it for me because he came down to play us. We had gone there the year before. He came down to play us. And these three boys that grew up with me, Hector, Victor, and Timic Suarez, twins and a younger brother. Timic played for the U17 national team for Roy Reese. And they decided to go to North Carolina. And they moved here with me from Due West. Their daddy played at Erskine against me in college. So they come down, and their captain was this guy. What's this guy's name? He just got done coaching the U.S. national team. What's his name?
Yes, Mr. Greg Berhalter. Yes,
he was their captain. And
he's going to come up later in the show, believe it or not.
Well, that is great because he'll tell you about this. And boy, I got a story to tell you about him that is wonderful. But anyway, We whooped them that day bad, 3-0. And Elmar, you had to dress in trailers, and it was pretty bad. And the game's over, and Elmar comes out of their dressing room. Their boys had gone to get on their bus, and he got kind of in my face, and he said, "Let me tell you, Ralph, you beat us today, but we will never come back here because this is not an NCAA Division I facility. This is terrible. We're in these trailers." He said, "Do you know that my players saw 3 rats in that trailer?" And he is really pissed. Now, he's pissed because we beat him 3-0.
Right.
Well, my president had just loved it. He's out there. I missed one. Don't let me forget Notre Dame. But anyway, he's right there. My president had just come around the corner and was 6 feet behind him when he's dressing me down about this. And he said, "We'll never come back here. And I will tell anybody that this is not NCAA division standard." But I'll tell you guys, it took me 40 minutes to plant those rats in their dressing room.
How Bull Durham is that?
So anyway, so I had got things rolling with the mayor and the admiral, and the judge was pretty convinced. And he said, "Ralph, Monday morning, 10 o'clock in my office, we're going to get this done, buddy. We're going to do it because I know you got the mayor and I know you got the admiral." Admiral was the CEO of Patriots Point. And Patriots Point is a great piece of land right on the harbor. And so we ended up building the stadium. And I'm proud that it's the Ralph Lundy Field. But we also built the baseball stadium, softball stadium, tennis center, and 5 soccer fields. So every day when I'm there training teams, I am so damn proud to see those fields covered with kids. I mean, it warms my heart. The first president, though, he didn't know it, so he hired me. But he thought, in my first year, we did good. My second year, we got beat in the, let me think. No, I can't remember who beat us my second year. 77, 87, 88. Oh, I tell you who beat us. Hurricane Hugo. That's who beat us.
Oh.
Wiped out everything.
89.
We still finished this season. No. That was 89. 88. Yeah. Here's what I did. I'm at the convention in Philadelphia. I'm sitting there with Dennis Grace, who had been the Clemson assistant, and he'd got the Notre Dame head job. And he said, "Damn, fall break, I got nothing." I said, "What do you mean you got nothing?" He said, "I got no game. We're going to have 8 days or more with nothing. And they're probably going to go home. I mean, I can bring them back early." And I said, "Well, come to Charleston, play us." We were still NAIA. And he said, "Well, can't afford it. I mean, I'm pretty maxed out on my budget." I said, "Listen, if you got enough money to pay for the flights, I'll pay for everything for 4 days. Everything you do, every meal, transportation, lodging, everything, Dennis." And I just took a shot at it because Charleston's a very, very Irish city, and the Old Boys Society is called Hibernians.
Yeah, the Hibernians.
Yeah, but Hibernians in Charleston are different because they got everybody who's an old businessman, whether they are from Germany or Israel or anywhere, and they are the old boys. And so I come back Tuesday. Dennis calls me and said, "Okay, the AD approved it." I said, "Okay, great. That's great." I hung the phone up and I went, "Oh, shit." I don't have $1 to do this. Not $1. So I go down the street to this wonderful fella who had been president of the Hibernians, Mr. Robbie Heffron. I said, Mr. Heffron, I got good news. I got Notre Dame. They're going to come play. He goes, Ralph, I know you get things done and you play Duke and you play South Carolina, but Notre Dame? I said, no, they'll come. They're coming. He said, that's great, Ralph. What can I do? I said, well, could you raise money for 4 days of all expenses from the Hibernians? Guess what? It took them 1 minute to approve it. They paid for everything. Notre Dame was ranked 6th in the country, undefeated. We had lost one match. This was 88. We're still NAIA. And we beat them that day 3-1. And we had 3,000 people there.
Wow.
And it was unbelievable. We started at 8 in the morning with skills competitions. Then we had some highlight youth games all day, and we kicked off at 3 with 3,000. I had sponsorship from all the best companies in Charleston. And man, what a day. And of course, there was President Lightsey sitting among the Hibernians. And when I say old boys, the old boys, you guys know what I mean. Those were the movers and shakers.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So boy, did that work for my program.
Wow.
In 88. 89 was Hugo. That was tough, but we finished it out.
So that is
actually the first game we played afterwards was Jack McKenzie and Quincy came here to play us. And they beat the dickens out of us. And then the next year we went to Quincy and played, and we beat them there. Boy, Jack McKenzie was something. He was a hospital administrator. I don't know if you guys know that. That was what he did.
I did not.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So those were the early days, the NAIA days. And we went Division I, and it worked pretty good. We were in the TAC conference. 94, we made a run, and we missed the Final Four by a minute at UCLA. We were up the whole game. Frankie Haydick got red carded. Snitko, their keeper, got red carded. We were up 2-1. They called a goal back. Now, how about this, guys? Boy, is this going to make you mad, Greg. We're up 2-1.
We remember these things.
We're up 2-1. I had a striker who actually went to Japan with Franz von Balk to play in the J League. But he ended up second leading scorer in the country that year, Chad Carithers. My goalkeeper drop kicks it. Chad brings it down, turns their defender back of the net, 3-1. We're going nuts. The linesman's got his flag up. You know what his call was?
Oh, no.
Brian dropped the ball on his drop kick outside the penalty area. How many times have you ever seen that called in your careers?
Never. And I did it all the time on purpose.
There you go. We'd have been up 3-1. So like I say, Haydick gets thrown out for intentional red card on a breakaway by Carithers. Snitko came out and handled the ball at 20 yards on a breakaway by Carithers. We're up 2-1, and they score. They got 2 free kicks in the last 17 minutes, and both of them went to we didn't head them out. Kevin O'Brien, who's the women's coach at Lipscomb, with an unbelievable record, he had his nose smashed. He was my center back in the air, and my little center back from Miami, Alvaro Bentancur, obviously wasn't dominant in the air, but they served the box, ball went to the ground. They scored, and with 1 minute left, they scored 3-2, and we didn't go to the Final Four. That was a great, great team with 16 Atlanta players on the team and 7 South Carolina kids.
Wow.
And I loved it, man. I loved it. And you know what? Believe me, Trinidadian players and international players have made me a very good coach, but I appreciate a coach who is willing to invest in American kids to grow them. They may not be the same as a freshman coming from England, but if you grow them, man, they can play and they can do it. Although I think the international influence is so important for our players' growth, collegiate players. It does. The international boys usually come over more as men.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say,
yeah.
Coach,
Ralph,
I'm so glad you brought up. I'm sorry, Greg.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you brought up Brian Haynes. He's the Colorado Rapids reserve team coach here.
Right.
And I'm right down the road. I'm going to go look him up, and I'm going to go say hello. I played against him in the old APSL, and man, what a player. So I'm glad you brought him up. Thank you. Sorry, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, sometimes on this show, John, we do some special things, and tonight's one of them. So before we do this, Ralph, I just want to let some people know that Coach Lundy is in the Erskine Hall of Fame, the Brevard Hall of Fame, the Western Carolina Hall of Fame, and of course you heard earlier he has his own soccer field, the Ralph Lundy Soccer Field, named after him.
While there wasn't a great spot to break up this interview, we've stopped right here. We have a special guest joining us for part 2 of the episode. Ralph Paulson will join us for the second half of the Ralph Lundy episode. Thanks for listening to the 3 Old Goalies, and we'll catch you all next time. Thanks for listening and watching the 3 Old Goalies. Be sure to join us next time. Like, subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our great content. You can follow us on Instagram or Twitter. Can't get enough of the 3 Old Goalies? Be sure to check us out at www.3oldgoalies.com.